Hello, everyone. Welcome back to a brand new episode of the Sens Hour podcast, sponsored by DraftKings. And just so you all know, two of the sport's most respected fighters are stepping back into the octagon this weekend to compete for the welterweight title. DraftKings, the official daily fantasy partner of UFC, is giving you a shot at huge cash prizes for this weekend's fight. DraftKings is offering new players a shot at $1 million in total prizes. MMA fantasy is a lot like hockey fantasy. You pick the 6 fighters, stay under the salary cap, pile up points, advances, takedowns, and more. There's no better way to put your MMA knowledge to the test than compete for a shot at $1 million. And honestly, even if you're a new fan of MMA, it's worth to just give it a shot for $1 million. Don't forget, there's basketball, hockey, where DraftKings has even more money up for grabs this weekend. Plenty of games being played. DraftKings is safe and secure and reliable, so you can deposit and withdraw your funds at your convenience. Remember, download the DraftKings app. Use promo code THPN for your chance at $1 million worth of prizes throughout the week. Promo code THPN, and I hope you enjoy betting. It's a lot of fun, especially when you win. It kind of sucks when you lose. But we got some positives, and betting, hockey, a lot of similarities. Senators split a series, their second split. They didn't get swept. Second split versus Montreal. They had the first split against Toronto. We're going to dive right into it. Derek, what was your take on the Sens split versus Montreal? They won on Thursday, lost on Saturday. Give us your rundown of it.
Well, first off, we did not expect the turnaround to come against the Montreal Canadiens. I think before the series, we were talking about their team speed and just how well that team was playing. And Ottawa was the complete opposite. They were looking as bad as we've ever seen them look. So going in, our expectations were basically blowout losses. So we got much, much better than that. The goaltending, first and foremost, Matt Murray seems to have found some confidence and found his game. The rebound control was great. He made some saves that he shouldn't have made and made the ones that he should have made. So first and foremost, that's why the Senators split the series with the Habs. And that's why, they were in it, especially today. I think the first period they were outplayed pretty bad. And I think I said after the first period in today's afternoon game on Saturday that Matt Murray really, really kept them in it after that first period and gave them an opportunity. And sure enough, they came back and played really well in that latter half of that game. I thought the Saturday game, I thought they easily could have deserved more than a loss there. But overall, great series against a really good team. Lots of positives to take away. Tim Stützle was phenomenal in both games, really. More so in the game on Thursday, but Saturday's game as well. He drew a lot of penalties. He's getting a much more prominent role from DJ Smith playing on the number 1 power play. Just a ton of positive takeaways. Eric Brännström making his season debut. Overall, I was really impressed. How did you feel about it, Shane?
Yeah, and we'll talk about the Thursday game first. Matt Murray looked sharp. I think everyone was expecting kind of a blowout, what we saw against, Edmonton and Vancouver, where he just wouldn't feel comfortable in the net and kind of letting in those weak goals. But he stood on his head. He made some ridiculous saves, kept Ottawa in it. I made a tweet out saying, Murray has had a great game, and then they would go ahead and score the second goal for Montreal right after I hit send. And I was just like, oh, wow. My timing right there. But to be fair, he kind of it was a knuckle puck of a shot. Looked like it got deflected. And then, this afternoon, which Ottawa doesn't have that great of a track record in afternoon games, at 1:00 games. They don't usually come out firing. They controlled the pace. Yeah, the first period was a little bit rough. I think we were outshot 20.
It was bad. 19-8 after the first period.
Yeah, because I think it was 25 to 10 at one point, and then it was 26-21, halfway through the second.
Yeah, they had a couple of, actually, I think 3 back-to-back power plays, and that's when they started loading up the shots and really came back in the game. And I thought the third period, moving from the back half of the second period to the third period, aside from the one defensive breakdown that allowed Josh Anderson to score, Ottawa controlled the play. They dictated the play. They had the puck more. I think they outshot them 12-4 at one stage in the third period. So they were really dictating the play against really one of the best teams in this division. So once again, I mean, huge positives to take away. And the good thing here is that it's the young players that are really standing out for the Senators early on in this season. It's, it would be another thing if it was the veterans that were doing their job and kind of insulating the young players, but it's been the complete opposite. It really is the young players that are actually insulating some of these veterans that are past their prime.
Yeah, and it's looking at the numbers. Ottawa's three players that led the team in time on ice. Brady Tkachuk for forwards, 20, 53. And then it was Evgeny Dadonov at 19-11, and then Drake Batherson at 19-10. Timmy Stützle played a career high in 17-37. Colin White was up to 16-19. And, Norris, who kind of struggled a little bit, in my opinion, here and there throughout the game. He had some really good power play time, but at even strength, he kind of got dominated a little bit. He still ended up with 15-46. So our top six, and Stepan was at 15-37. I like that number lowered a little bit. Connor Brown was at 15-02, which I think is fine. Galchenyuk was at 10-17. I'd move Galchenyuk up a little bit and then move Stepan down, or Chris Tierney up and Stepan down. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's our young guys who have stepped up and started commanding, a bunch of playing time.
Yeah, the one kind of remaining issue that I have is probably Derek Stepan, and it isn't nearly as much of an issue as Cedric Paquette was, or Braden Coburn was, for that matter. But Stepan has not looked good this season in my mind. He's had moments, but he's not really doing what he was brought here to do. He's worked his way to a fourth line role. I don't know why he gets power play time. The puck just kind of explodes off his stick. And I would much rather see Logan Brown get the time that Stepan is getting. Yeah,
100%. I mean, if you're going to have him playing 15-37, you may as well have Logan Brown in that situation. And I mean, I think in time we'll start to see Logan Brown brought up, but the big story was Erik Brännström coming in, making his season debut on Thursday, which I was kind of surprised about. The fact that, that was like practice with the team and then was like, okay, we're going to put you in. I was kind of surprised, but he did not look out of place.
Not at all. He looks like he's been practicing this whole time, and he seemed to know the systems. He gelled right in there. I thought he made more of an impact Thursday, but the fact that we didn't really notice him is also a good thing. I mean, I think last year there was a few glaring mistakes that Brännström made, and just getting out muscled. The penalty was completely crap that was called against him today that led to the first Montreal goal. I mean, that is not a penalty. He was just boxing, I think it was Gallagher, boxing him out of the crease. And Gallagher just kind of ran into his stick, and they called Brännström on an interference penalty. It was just a horrible call. It was really weak. But they made the same call against Romanov, so they evened things up, and both teams scored on that man advantage. But aside from that, Erik Brännström coming in here and looking like he belongs now, that changes things for the Senators D. I mean, we no longer have to rely on guys like Braden Coburn or Josh Brown that were really, really struggling. And it brings another element of puck movement. And then Wolanin's going to be back probably, next week at some point. So the Senators D is going to look entirely different than it did look at the start of the year, and that's a huge positive.
Yeah, and I'm very interested to see what they do. Honestly, the last two games with Brännström in the lineup, Chabot looks a lot calmer. He looks a lot more composed, because I don't think he feels like, everything has to be run through me. I have help on the left side where, hey, if I don't have to generate all the offense. Obviously, he still will generate the majority of the offense. And, Artem Zub, because apparently we've been saying it wrong since he was signed. It's not Zub, it's Zub, apparently. but he's also looked really good. He was a minus player today, but I mean, that second goal was, a fluke on everyone. There was no one person responsible for that second goal outside of Murray. Like Murray saved the first one, saved the second one.
Yeah, you can't fault Murray on that either. I mean, he made 2 10-bell saves before the puck went in. I don't know what else you can ask for from your goaltender there. But, I thought Zub's been Zub, right? Not Zub.
Zub, according to TSN.
I don't like that because it doesn't work well with Zub Nation. I mean, Zub Nation sounded good, but Zub Nation just doesn't sound good. Anyway, aside from that, he's been a breath of fresh air on the blue line. He moves the puck well. He's a smart player. He reads plays well. He gets the puck out of his end. Like he doesn't really lack anything, and he moves okay. Like his mobility, he's not fast, but he's not slow. He's not Braden Coburn or Josh Brown. So, I mean, it's an improvement for sure. The blue line is going to be vastly improved from what it was.
Yeah, I mean, go Sens go. We'll say that. Before we move on, because we do have our Edmonton series coming up, a 2-game set starting Monday, I believe, versus the Oilers. What is your good, bad, and the ugly of the Montreal series for this Senators team? Outside of the jerseys, I think everyone can agree the jerseys are the good 110 times over.
That's the great. if there's a great category, those bold red jerseys, oh my goodness. We might have the best jerseys in the entire league right now with that 3 jersey set. The blacks, the whites, the reds, they all look incredibly impressive. They hit a home run with those. But for good, I mean, I have to give it to Matt Murray. I mean, just from where he was, and I want to give it to DJ Smith at the same time. I almost want to split it, but I'll give it to Matt Murray because he's really bounced back here, and he looks like he's found his confidence. If he could consistently for the rest of the year, then the Senators are going to be just fine.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think Matt Murray has looked good. I think, DJ Smith has made the proper adjustments. He just coached his 83rd game in the NHL. I think that's something that needs to be mentioned, is that this guy has literally just started, his second season of games as an NHL coach. So I think we were a little bit too hard on him. Honestly, I think the first couple of games, during that road trip,
he needed it.
Hey, maybe who knows at this point? But hey, whatever him and Pierre agreed upon, it worked. For me, though, the good is the power play. The overall way the power play has moved with, Colin White, if I'm looking at a B kind of, or a 1B kind of option, Colin White has looked fantastic the last 2 games. Got a goal tonight or this afternoon. But yeah, I think power play with Brännström on the second unit. The only negative I can take away from the power play is Derek Stepan. But outside of that, unit 1 is looking good with Timmy Stützle. And, overall, that's probably the best I got for good.
Yeah, and going to bad, I don't like that there's 2 negative categories now because, it was a really positive couple of games. So it's almost a shot to give someone a bad. But I'm gonna go Derek Stepan. I've been talking about him this whole time. You know what, Pierre, you want to bring in veteran players. Don't bring in these veteran players that are just on the backside of their career. They aren't insulating anybody. I mean, they're only preventing better players from coming up on the NHL roster. So for the bad, switching the number and taking Logan Brown's number, whatever, that situation is, and asking for a trade and all this, crazy stuff happening surrounding Derek Stepan, he's getting the bad from me.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. Hey, you know what? I think in a normal year where his family could have moved with him to Ottawa, and, he didn't have to worry about leaving his wife with a newborn at home in Arizona and whatnot. I think, that takes a mental toll on someone where they have to leave their family, especially when they have a young family, to not just a different city, but a new country. And you can't see them all the time. And, you have travel restrictions and you're not going to go down to Arizona to play a game. So you don't have that on the calendar. So I think there was a lot to it for Derek Stepan. Hopefully, maybe he turns the corner. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. For me, the bad, honestly, is that the inconsistency of the fourth line. The fact that Paquette's still in, Galchenyuk had played 2-3 games so far this season. I personally want to see Galchenyuk in the lineup consistently and more often. I hope we can see him in on Monday versus Edmonton. So for me, just the fourth line is the bad part for me.
Yeah, I have to agree with that as well. I mean, it's definitely not perfect yet, but Galchenyuk adds a hell of a lot more than Cedric Paquette was adding to that line. So it still is better than what we've seen. Switching to the ugly, I don't know if I can find anything that was glaringly ugly. I'm trying to think of something, but to be honest, nothing about these last couple of games to me was ugly. It was a positive turnaround for the Senators. So what do you have anything for the ugly, Shane?
So this one's borderline ugly. I'd probably put it in the bad category, but and this is honestly, you could probably just chalk it up to, new players starting to work together. It just seems that there's been a little bit too many turnovers still in the defensive zone between the goaltender and the defenseman and stuff like that. We saw it in today on power plays and even strength, leading for chances in front of the net. For me, that's the ugly because, you have to clean that up. You don't want turnovers in your own end like that. So maybe I'm just nitpicky on it, but for me, that's the ugly, but it's easy, manageable fix that you can get corrected by their next game.
Yeah, I'll go back to it because I thought of something on the fly as you were talking, and it's still the penalty kill. I mean, it's still just as ugly as it was. The positive is that they weren't on the penalty kill nearly as much as they had been, so they're playing a lot more discipline. But it will cost you against the Oilers, and that's something we'll get into. But they have to be way more disciplined, and they can't be on that penalty kill, and they have to fix it because it's the same thing. It's the collapse towards the goalie, and there's layers of traffic. And I seen it in the first period in Saturday's game against the Canadiens. They were collapsing toward their net again hard, and it cost them basically every time. I mean, that penalty kill is not good. It needs to be way more aggressive, and they can't be collapsing toward their own net.
Yeah, 100% agree on that. Moving on, we have the Edmonton Oilers coming up for a 2-game slate. We lost to them. Two in a row? We lost two in a row?
Yeah.
We're chasing them in the standings. They are a beatable team. We do have players that can compete. We just need to stay disciplined. Koskinen and Skinner or whoever they have even Smith. This is going to be an interesting 2 games. Ottawa can match up well because they're at home against McDavid and Draisaitl. If they can stay disciplined, I think Ottawa has a legitimate chance at winning these 2 games.
Yeah, I mean, going into the first Edmonton series, I thought that would be the point that Ottawa bounces back. I think at the time, Edmonton was right at the bottom with us of the standings. They've won a few games. I think they're 500 at 6-6, but they're a beatable team. There's no question. Their goaltending isn't near the top of the league or anywhere near the top of the league. You have to keep them off the power play, which we were just talking about. They have a lethal power play, but outside of that, Ottawa dictated play 5-on-5. If they can get the same goaltending that they got this series from Matt Murray, they absolutely have a chance to beat the Oilers both games.
Yeah, and it's going to be real interesting. Matt Murray is going to be a deciding factor. But the other deciding factor, it's a German versus German, Drysdale versus Stützle. Is it time to admit, or is it way too early to admit that maybe Timmy Stützle was the best player in the draft? And if he did play in North America, either at the NCAA level or in the CHL, he would have gone first overall?
Yeah, man, I've been on this for so long. It seems that it's almost annoying to some people, but I remember so far back saying that Tim Stützle could be the best player of this draft. I said it so many times in the summertime, like going back. I might have to find some of those old tweets just to kind of throw it in some people's face. But it was obvious that the Rangers were going to select Alexis Lafreniere, but it's no secret that Lafreniere's had a very, very slow start to his career, and he's getting a prominent role in the team. He's playing with Mika Zibanejad. He's playing number one power play minutes. He's playing 14 minutes and 50 seconds a game. I just did a write-up on this a little while ago on Stützle, but just kind of comparing him. And then you go to Quinton Byfield. He's not even in the league. I mean, he's in the American Hockey League. Obviously, he's younger, so that's a factor. But aside from that, he's a more in-your-face, explosive, offensive player. And I think it was clear to me from a long time ago that he could be the best player in the draft. Bob McKenzie said it before. Craig Button said it before. Some of the analytics folks did not like Tim Stützle. And yeah, I just said folks. I don't know why I said that. I don't normally say it, but honestly, I think it's possible. I think it's very early. We should mention that, you know, these players could still make a push for sure. And we haven't seen, you know, what Lucas Raymond looks like in the NHL yet and some of these other players. But Stützle is every bit as skilled as Alexis Lafreniere, and if not more.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the way Kakko was kind of played in under Dan or Pete Quinn or whatever his name is in New York, and watching some of the New York games, I honestly think that people have been talking crap about DJ Smith. The guy they have in New York is just as bad, if not worse. I think if Kakko and Lafreniere were in Ottawa under DJ Smith, they would be in a lot better situation than they are in New York, even though, you know, they have Panarin, they have Zibanejad. I don't think they have the right coach to coach these young guys on how to be pros.
Something's going on. You could make an argument that Kakko was rushed into the league. Before he came into the league, everyone was saying, this kid is ready. He's a big body. He's a big, physically mature body. I think even dating back to the first preseason of last year, before he scored like an unreal goal, he looked unbelievable. And then the season starts and he's just a ghost out there and he's bad. I mean, now flash forward, you look at the analytics of Kakko, and I was shocked by this, but if you follow Jay Fresh at all on Twitter, he just posted something about Kakko the other day, and his numbers analytically are almost as bad as anybody in the entire hockey league. So he was definitely not ready. I don't know how they utilized him because I didn't pay particular attention to it. But if Lafreniere fails to develop as well, then you have to look at under a microscope at what's going on in New York, because that's a huge missed opportunity. Those are two huge draft picks. I mean, a number one overall pick in Lafreniere, who's supposed to be the next big thing. And Kakko was so good that people were saying, you know, maybe they should have, the Devils should have taken him over Hughes. And now you flash forward and it's like, no way. Like, he's not even close.
Yeah, I mean, and the fact that they didn't even let him go back, and I think this is what pisses me off with the Rangers. You're asking Lafreniere, like, to come into camp without having to play a game since, like, March, mid-March or early March. And then you have Kakko, who probably could have used more seasoning in overseas to start the year. You know, I think that's kind of like their GM messed up. Lafreniere should have been on Team Canada, just like how Timmy Stützle was on Team Germany. And Kakko should have been over in Finland playing instead of waiting, twiddling his thumbs.
And it might be the same thing as Jesse Puljujarvi, who we're seeing now playing really well with the Oilers. But maybe the Rangers will have to open their minds up a little bit and just admit that Kakko is not NHL ready and should probably go on a confidence-finding mission for a year in Finland.
Yeah, I mean, or
again,
or you can just trade him. You know, if you're a team, like realistically, in a cap-strapped team like the Rangers, and you're a team who has, you could. Hey, I would not be surprised if the Rangers look at moving Kakko next summer. End of his entry-level deal.
We should almost read that last comment again, because we are going to get into, so the real Moonrock. We need one more high-octane offensive weapon. later on in the show, Shane and I will be getting into what the Senators could look like next season. So stay tuned for that, because we might have a couple answers to your question.
Yeah, and I mean, if you've been following along, if you've been following along to Twitter, I've been huge on the cap hit. Kind of bringing the information that some people may not know, that Ottawa needs to play to the cap floor, and we're not in a situation where we can do that relatively easily internally. So well, after the break, in about probably like 10 minutes, we'll be jumping into 20, 21, 22. Even though it's super early, we're going to talk about it anyways. But continuing on, Edmonton, Murray plays well. Zub, Brännström, Zaitsev. It's kind of funny. We got 2 Russians, a Swede, and a Canadian making out our top 4.
Yeah,
and
a little bit of everything.
Realistically, depending on how things go, it's not out of the question that all 4 of those players could be representing their international teams, or technically Olympic athletes of Russia, at the Olympics in 2022. It's not out of the world to say that Shabbat and Brännström will represent Canada, Sweden, and Zub and Zaitsev will be representing athletes from Russia. Which to me, it's very interesting. Our top, and the same thing with our some of our forwards. Stützle is going to represent Germany, no doubt. There's a chance that maybe Tkachuk and Norris can kind of play their way into a bottom 6 role or a middle 6 role for Team USA. Kind of crazy to think about.
Tkachuk will be on Team USA for sure. Both the brothers will be there.
I would hope, but the USA isn't that smart. Dadonov will most likely be for Russia. It's going to be interesting to see.
He's had a slow start. He's got to start playing better.
But here's the thing: he was all over the ice today. He had some really good chances today. Over the last 4 games, he's been all over the ice. He's had some really good chances. Once Dadonov gets clicking, our offensive weapons, everything else, is just going to fall in place for him. And it's just going to be on a roll for him.
But the problem is it's a condensed season. So, I mean, if we keep saying once he gets going, once he gets clicking and finds his game, we're already, 11 games into the season. It's like he's got to start finding his game next game, and he's really got to start producing, or that $5 million contract is not looking so good. And I noticed him today. I thought, in Saturday's game against the Canadians, I thought Dadonov was really good. He made it one particular spin pass and found Brady Tkachuk that I thought was phenomenal. It looked really, really good. I noticed him slowing down after about the second period. So I made note of that as well. But, he's just got to find a way to stay consistent and not look so lazy out there.
Yeah, and I mean, hey, it's good. It's frustrating. If you have the chances and you don't capitalize, it can be frustrating for a player. But if he can get clicking, that top 6, with the way Colin White has played, with Stützle and Dadonov, Brännström, Norris, and Tkachuk, that top 6 can be lethal and can go against Edmonton top 6 relatively easily, especially at home. That top 6 is going to be matched up with the bottom 6 of Edmonton, and they should be able to have some matchups that are favorable to them to create some good chances.
Yeah, and that's the thing they have to do that they didn't do so much of. I mean, they created pretty good chances. I thought Jake Allen played a really, really good game. But they have to do a better job of getting to the front of the net and getting bodies in front. And I know it's such a typical hockey thing to say, because every player basically says that during every intermission. Oh, we got to get, guys to the net, and we got to create layers of traffic and get pucks to the net. But they really do have to do that with more urgency. I thought they generated really good chances, but they're still kind of perimeter chances. They're, racking up the shot numbers, but they're not exactly, shots that are going to beat anybody. They're just shots from the outside. So I think they have to get creative a little bit, and maybe replacing Nick Paul for Tim Stützle on the second line with Colin White will do some good.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, Colin White's looked really well, really good. I don't think he's going to be out of the lineup anytime soon. I think he's kind of started to solidify himself as our second line center, which is nice to see. But, we need more Colin White goals. The goal that Colin White scored tonight or this afternoon versus Montreal is more of what we need to see from everyone else. And I think we will start to see it because they realize like, hey, we can generate offense from the perimeter, but we need someone crashing the net consistently to bang home those rebounds. And it's a little bit harder for, Tkachuk and Batherson to do it against guys like Sherratt and Weber and Petrie. But it should be a lot easier when you don't have Ethan Bear, or you're not expected to have Ethan Bear, and you probably only have to deal with Darnell Nurse, and you should be able to match up without having to face Darnell Nurse. So you should be able to crash the net a little bit more versus Edmonton at home.
Yeah, no doubt. And one of the matchups I'm looking forward to seeing, I think when the series ended off, there was a lot of jawing going on between Kassian and Brady Tkachuk this time. And I know, that rivalry against the Calgary Flames with Kassian and Matthew Tkachuk probably carried over into the family. So Brady Tkachuk kind of carrying that over, and they had some words for each other. And I think Kassian mouthed "your brother" at some point. So look out for that one. That'll be fun. And I think, the Senators will definitely be protecting Tim Stützle. And he was taking some shots today, like relentlessly against the Montreal Canadiens. So if Edmonton tries any of that at all, you can look out for some of the thugs to get in there and start throwing fists.
Oh yeah, Austin. Don't even be surprised if Tkachuk does it. I know DJ may not want it.
They don't want him to, but
okay, but are you really going to try controlling a player like Brady Tkachuk? Hasn't worked in Calgary. You're not going to control it. You may want him to not throw a punch, but he's not going to back down from a fight.
No, he's an emotional player, and he plays Tkachuk hockey, and basically him and his brother play the same style. His dad played the same style. I mean, they're not going to back down at all. But you got to
take it all together. It's a package deal. You can't get one player and expect him not to you can't expect him to play a certain way without there being other things added to the game.
Yeah, agreed. And I think people were upset that it didn't happen today against the Canadiens, but it was a 1-goal game, and the Senators were looking to get back in the game on the score sheet. So it's a situation where you just can't risk taking a bad penalty. So to me, that's why we didn't see like Goodbranson sticking up for Stützle or anyone going after Josh Anderson. But believe me, that's banked. Like they've remembered that. It's banked. They play the Habs 8 more times this season. It's going to happen.
Yeah, Sherratt's cross-check to the back of Stützle's head. If Goodbranson gets suspended for his hit on Evans, Sherratt better be suspended for the cross-check to Stützle. To be fair, player safety's been a joke, and I don't expect anything from them. But you can't have one and then you can't condone one and then not say anything about the other one. They're both hits to the head. Intentional, unintentional, doesn't matter. If you're going to say one should be suspended, the other one has to be suspended.
Yeah, and I mean, to be fair, the Goodbranson hit was definitely high looking at it. I mean, we have the ability to look at everything in slow motion and see the play slowing down. I don't know that there was intent there, but he definitely made contact with the head. I didn't like the hit, but yeah, exactly. It has to be the same rule that applies for everybody, and Stützle took a friggin' beating today.
Yeah, I mean, here's my thing. I know it's a hit to the head. No one's arguing that. But when I was learning how to take a hit in hockey, my coaches emphasize that if you see someone coming at you, you brace for the hit. No matter the situation, you brace for the hit, because if you don't brace for the hit and try to change it or turn on it or whatever, you're gonna end up getting hurt. I do not feel bad for Evans because it's not like Goodbranson just popped out of nowhere in front of him. You can, in the replay, the long shot, you can see him noticing Goodbranson coming at him, which is why he dumps the puck in. And then he stops skating. If Evans took the hit, it would have been shoulder on shoulder and it wouldn't have been an issue. And I posted a clip on my personal Twitter of a hit from Chera hitting Riley Nash, I think in 2019. In the playoffs, Riley Nash, basically the same situation. He passes it off, but he sees Chera coming. He braces for the hit, moves his head out of the way, clean shoulder-to-shoulder hit. And if he doesn't do that, he does what Jake Evans does, it's most likely him splattered all over the ice. Like, players need to take responsibility. Players being hit need to take responsibility, because if they don't, they're going to get hurt.
Yeah, I agree that some of the onus is definitely on the puck carrier, and you could make that argument. But at the same time, Goodbranson doesn't have to make contact with the head. I mean, he rose up. There's a size difference. There's a notable size difference, and that sometimes naturally happens. But at the end of the day, the fault is not going to be on Evans here when they're talking about suspension. It's going to be on Goodbranson. So I don't know if he'll get suspended for it. I don't know if it was that bad of a hit, but it's just something that he's going to have to be aware of moving forward.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I don't think it's being suspended. I mean, I saw, Lindblom got freaking crushed to the head the other day, and nothing came from it. So, again, Department of Player Safety is a joke. It's always going to be a joke until they actually put people who care about the sport in it and are willing to do what they have to do to put their hammer down consistently. But with that being said, we're going to head over to break. We'll be back in about a minute. Once we're back, we're going to talk 2021 projections. It's going to be a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun with this project, something I've always wanted to do. Talk a little bit about the Seattle expansion draft. So stay with us. Thank you all for tuning in today. Remember, follow us on YouTube and Twitter. But we'll be right back in about a minute. Go grab a drink and whatnot, but don't leave. And we are back. Thank you all for joining us and sticking with us through that break. But let's get into it. There's been a lot of talk about what Ottawa's going to do to get to the cap floor. We have Seattle expansion draft coming on. So Derek and I have decided to take a little jab at being a GM and what kind of moves we would try to make, cap-wise and everything, breaking down the cap to the smallest dollar on making Ottawa a competitive team heading into 21-22. Unparalleled success, spending to the cap, all that jazz. I had a lot of fun doing it. I hope Derek had a lot of fun doing it. So I'm gonna let Derek start off. Give us your roster. Give us your roster, forwards, defense, goalies for the 21-22 season.
All right, so here's the deal. I mean, Ottawa doesn't have to have this kind of huge offseason where they make a ton of transactions. It really doesn't have to happen next year. I think a lot of players are going to graduate. So here's what I have. I mean, I'll just give it to you up front. What I would have is adding a guy like Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. He's 27 years old. He's on an expiring contract. He'll be a UFA in the offseason. And Edmonton, quite frankly, can't afford to repay him. So, or they would be hard pressed to repay him what Ottawa could repay him, I should specify. So I try to make it somewhat realistic. I think this is a guy that, unlike this season, a guy that you can add to your roster who's not going to suck. And the young players won't have to, carry this dead weight around. He's a guy that will add to the roster. So I have the first line, I have staying what we've seen earlier this season with Tkachuk, Norris, and Batherson. I would keep that the same. Obviously, Brady Tkachuk's going to need a contract. My guess for that, as is Drake Batherson, and I think they're both going to be bridge contracts. And Ottawa can afford to repay them, and in fact, to overpay them, and in fact, they have to overpay them just to get some cap compliance. So I expect some front-loaded contracts when it comes to Tkachuk and Batherson. So that's the first line: Tkachuk, Norris, Batherson. Same as this year. On the second line, I'm keeping Stützle on the left wing. I know a lot of people want to see him move toward the center position. But if you're able to add a player like Ryan Nugent-Hopkins in the offseason, I think that matches really well with Tim Stützle. And hopefully Evgeny Dadonov can bounce back because we've signed him for 3 years. So he's on for $5 million. I'm giving Ryan Nugent-Hopkins an increase in salary, and I know he was making a lot already, but I'm giving him $6.4 million. I'm giving him a four-year contract, but it's front-loaded. So I would have an average annual value of $4 million, of $6 million for Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, the same as what he's making now. On the third line, Nick Paul, Shane Pinto, and Connor Brown. So Shane Pinto graduating from the University of North Dakota. He looks like an NHL-ready player. I would have him as the third-line center, which means Colin White gets knocked down to the fourth-line center position. Alex Formanton is going to graduate, and Austin Watson is still there on the right side. So not a whole lot of change, really, except for the fact that a lot of these players are young, and a lot of them are going to be a year more developed than they are this season. And adding a guy like Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, I think, will help insulate that group and add a lot more potency to the offense. And then on the defensive side of things, I'm going Thomas Chabot with Adam Larson. So I'm poaching two Edmonton Oilers. And Adam Larson is another player that the Senators can afford to overpay in the first couple of seasons. I'm giving him a 4-year contract. He's a player that is 28 years old. So that will bring him to 32 years old at the end of that contract. So you're still getting the end of his prime and then a couple of years after that. And I think he's a perfect complementary player to Thomas Chabot. And I would pay Larson $5 million a season. Jake Sanderson hopefully graduates, and JBD graduates. So that's actually my second pairing. And then Eric Brännström with Nikita Zaitsev and Christian Wolanin being the extra. And in goal, you're going to expose Högberg to Seattle. And you're going to have a combination of Matt Murray and Joey Decord, who will graduate. And Chris Tierney, you're probably noticing that I kept out. I would expose him as well. So that is my entire roster for next season. Just a lot of internal improvements.
Yeah, I mean, I love it. I think that's a great roster. It's funny because I have Tierney exposed and selected by Seattle as well. And it's not because I don't dislike Tierney. I just think that down the middle, he's a guy that we can leave exposed. And if he gets picked, I mean, he gets picked and so be it. For me, okay, so how much are we paying Tkachuk and Batherson AAV?
Yeah, it has to be front loaded. AAV for Tkachuk's going to be around 8.5 million, which is large, but it's a bridge deal. If he's signed longer term, I think the dollar value might go down a little bit, but yeah, he's got to be making a lot. I would give him $9 million next season just because you have to get to the cap. And I know that sounds crazy. And Drake Batherson, to me, he's a $5 million player. So I'm giving him $5 million AAV. And again, we have to get to the cap floor. So these guys are going to be overpaid a little bit, but Batherson, bridge deal at 3 years.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. I agree with that roster. Not as much promotion on my roster. For me, I got, the first line stays the same, Tkachuk, Norris, Batherson. I have Tkachuk signing a $7.5 million deal on a 3-year deal. I am going with that short term because I think we signed him to a 3-year deal. We can sign him to an 8-year deal after the 3 years to probably like a $9 million deal. But I think 7.5, you kind of stay below Shabbat, and you know what? We have to get to the cap. I feel like 7.5 can get us there. Norris is obviously still on his entry level deal, so we don't have to worry about it. I have Batherson at $3 million. In comparables to Connor Brown and Dadonov, is he worth the same as Dadonov after one season? Probably not. You can justify paying him $5 million. Really, like, oh, you have to overpay. We need to get to the cap. It's not necessarily we're overpaying him because we have to keep him. It's just we're overpaying him because we need to spend the money. But I have him at 3. I feel like that's a solid deal for him on a short-term deal. I have my second line, Stützle, White, and Dadonov. That's going to stay the same. I think White has finally just started to show he can be a number 2 center. The third line, it's Formanton on his entry-level deal his last year, Logan Brown, and Connor Brown. I think that's going to be our third line. Fast but gritty.
And horrible for play-by-play guys to call, right?
Yes, just to screw with our play-by-play guys.
There you go.
This is where the changes start to happen. Fourth line, I have Paul, Nick Bonino, and Austin Watson. Nick Bonino, he's won cups with Pittsburgh. He's been a very solid bottom 6 guy. He's older, yes. I think he's like 35 now or 34. But he's probably one of those guys that you can overpay justifiably. You're getting a leader in the locker room, a guy who's won a cup, and he's a good penalty killer, and he can provide some offense. As a fourth line guy, you're not really blocking anyone. You have Logan Brown in there, you have White, you have North, so you're not really blocking anybody from coming up in the lineup. And the extras, I have Luke Glendening and Derek Ryan. I have Nick Bonino at $3 million for 2 years. I have Luke Glendening. He's a center left wing, solid bottom 6 penalty killing guy for Detroit this year. I think he would be perfect for the situation in Ottawa. Could help Norris and White and Brown with the faceoffs. I have him for a 1-year, $2 million deal. And I have Derek Ryan at 2.5. Again, another guy, great on the faceoffs, great bottom 6 guy who I think would fit in well with, what's going on in Ottawa, be a leader in the locker room for them. And I mean, 2 years, 2.5, you're not blocking anybody. You can make an argument that even if Pinto goes pro next season, that they're probably not going to put him into the NHL right away.
You just want someone on the roster with your last name, right? So you can buy a new sweater with your last name on it. That's what it is. To be fair,
I've always been a fan of Derek Ryan. I've always liked him. I thought he was a solid bottom 6 guy, and I would have loved to have him in Ottawa. The fact that his last name is Ryan is it's a cherry on top. But not going to lie, I do like Derek Ryan and what he brings to the roster. On defense, Shabbat with Dougie Hamilton. Giving a Dougie a 7-year, $56 million contract, $8 million AAV to solidify that top pairing. I love what Dougie brings to the ice. I just think he's fantastic. He'd be a fit for this team, in my opinion. Give him $8 million. I was being modest. You can even give him $8.5, $9 million. I do not care. Get him in Ottawa.
We need a hype button for that one.
Yeah. If he hits free agency, Ottawa better be kicking his door down and being like, here's our contract. Let's go. We're bringing it back to Ottawa. The second pairing, I have Brännström, and I got Jacob Bernard-Docker graduating from North Dakota as my second pair. Third pair, Wolanin and Zaitsev, and Josh Brown as our 7th defenseman. He's under contract, so unless he's taken or traded, I think Josh Brown will be part of the team next year. And obviously, goaltenders are Murray and Decord. I traded Hogberg to the Flames for Derek Ryan's UFA rights and a 2022 third-round pick. Calgary's most likely going to lose Riddick. They need to expose somebody. It kind of works out for both teams. If they don't lose him, which I would be very surprised they would, well, they have their backup goaltender for next year, no problem. And I also traded Philip Schlappick's rights to Minnesota, a team that needs a bottom 6 player, for a 2023 4th-round pick.
Yeah, I like it. Overall, I like it. I mean, the move I like obviously the most is Dougie Hamilton. I mean, I think that I said Adam Larson would be a good partner for Shabbat. Hamilton would be the best partner for Shabbat if he actually does hit free agency, and Carolina doesn't try to re-up him, which I think they will try to do. If he gets to UFA, you have to throw the book at him. You have to try and get that guy. That would be my number one choice. I know I like Ryan Nugent-Hopkins additions that I made, but over Adam Larson, I would take Dougie Hamilton all day. I think, what a world of difference that would make on the blue line for Thomas Chabot.
Yeah, I mean, even having him paired with, Brännström, and you put JBD with Chabot, you have experience with experience, right? You don't necessarily want like a young pairing, group. Mm-hmm. But that's my, forte of who I think our top six would look like. And we would be sitting at just under $73.5 million, including about $4 million. So about $69 million in roster cap hit, which is more than enough than we need.
Yeah, that's over the floor. So you're in business there. You're doing good. But the one criticism I have is Nick Bonino. I think that's such a Pierre Dorian move that I almost don't want to speak that into existence, because I feel like, we're getting rid of Derek Stepan and we're bringing in Nick Bonino. To me, that's such a Pierre Dorian move. I hope he doesn't hear this.
I mean, if he does, he better give me credit for it.
Oh, God. You don't want credit for that. That's not going to work out well for you.
I think Nick Bonino in a bottom six role in and out of the lineup is more than okay, considering that we have to spend money anyways, right? And at least Nick Bonino has shown, like, you're not trading a second round pick for him. You're not bringing him in to be like a 20, 30, 40 point guy. He's not blocking anyone, right? So, like, as long as you fit him in the role, you're not giving him power play time. He's on your penalty kill. It's a justifiable move.
Yeah. It's not, it's not the worst thing in the world. I'm just bugging you a little bit, but yeah, Bonino is such a Dorian move that I don't want that to happen.
Hey, well, it might just happen.
Yeah, probably will.
But yeah, I think overall, it's funny because I exposed Murray, like in any. I got messaged by the State of Hoppy, who's one of the hosts for the Minnesota Wild podcast on the network, and he's like, "Hey, we're doing like a expansion talk. Like, can you give me like the players that you think would be protected?" I had Murray exposed purely for the fact that
the contract. I mean,
the contract, and you look at the goalies who are going to be available in the expansion draft. You have Brian Elliott, Jake Allen. You could probably finesse Vegas into trading Fleury with a couple of picks attached to it. You have
another expansion team for Fleury.
Yeah, I mean, hey,
hilarious.
Weirder things have happened. You could get, like
Columbus has two good goalies in Merzlikins and Korpisalo.
You have Holpe or Demko out of Vancouver who's going to be exposed. You have Frederick Anderson or Dave Riddick who are most likely going to be exposed because they're UFAs. So you could probably figure out a way to get a pick out of that, or what you may have. You have Mrazek, who's a free agent. So there are wiggle rooms for goaltenders in the draft or for Vegas that are cheaper and on better contracts than Murray. So I would expose Murray, protect the cord, trade Hogberg, and just hope for your best that you don't. And if you lose, and if for whatever reason Murray does get picked, there's a bunch of other.
Look how many free agents there are. Yeah, I know. Look how many goalie free agents there are. Tuukka Rask's a free agent. I mean, there's so many top goalies. I don't think you'd have to worry about it. It would be a blessing, actually, if Murray was picked up by Seattle. Not to say that I don't agree. Like, Murray, if he continues to play this way, that's great. But the contract is huge.
Yeah, but hey, we need to spend money, right? You're talking about overpaying Batherson after 1 year of $5 million for a 3-year deal. You're going to pay Murray the same amount of time. You're paying him an extra like $1.25 million extra for Murray, right? Yeah. You need the money anyways.
And I do like Murray's he's still a young goaltender. He's still got growing to do. So I like the age difference there with Murray versus some of the guys that will be free agents. They're going to be older and a little bit. You can't get as much from them in terms of productive years. So Murray's still got his best years in front of him, hopefully.
Imagine if Murray does get picked, and then we sign Frederik Andersen. First game of the season's against Toronto in Toronto. Frederik versus Jake Campbell, and Frederik gets the friggin' shutout.
That would be hilarious.
It would be hilarious. But before we end off, I totally forgot about it. What's your opinion on the possibility of having 2 drafts in 4 days in the summer of 2022?
Yeah, I don't know why we didn't add that to the list before. That's like such a big piece of news.
I totally forgot about it.
Yeah, actually, I'm a fan of it. I think it gives. I mean, I don't know how you could scout right now. That's the thing. I mean, not a lot of players are even playing, so there's no real ability. You have to go off what you've seen last year, and it doesn't give you a lot when it comes to scouting. And when it comes to the draft, you want to be sure, especially for Ottawa, who's going to be in the top 5. But once again, you want to be sure of the player that you're going to select. So. For me, as long as they don't screw around with the lottery format and we're still guaranteed to get a top 5 when they eventually do the draft, at least for this year's pick, then I'm a fan of it. I think it gives them extra time. And that player that they select will basically be NHL ready immediately. It'll be a player, that could come right into the lineup after they're drafted. So I'm a fan of it. What do you think?
I think it's great. You got a 19-year-old outside of an 18-year-old. You really get to see what these guys can do. It could hurt for some players, or it could be a huge benefit to others. And it also gives Ottawa kind of a chance to see who they have and what they need. Let's say for whatever reason, for whatever reason, White and Norris prove to be 1-2. You have Pinto coming up. You may look at getting a winger. Mm-hmm. Or you feel like, okay, our wings are kind of set. Formanton, Stützle, Tkachuk, Batherson, Sokolov, Abramov, whatever. You kind of look at, our defense, and you look at, okay, our Thompson and Bernard Docker are going to be good on our right wing, right? Are you going to have, where does Sanderson or Brännström fit? So it'll open up for some questions for us.
There's definitely some good players. I mean, it's not last year's draft, but there's definitely players to keep an eye on if you're a Sens fan and you're looking at the top 5. Brandt Clark is a guy that might be a fit. He's a right shot defenseman. He's more of an offensive defenseman, but he's an Ottawa product. He's from Ottawa. He's a Sens fan, grew up a season ticket holder. Lots of cool kind of stories when it comes to Brandt Clark. He's one of my favorites. And Matthew Beniers that we've seen in the World Juniors is a guy that could play the wing or center. Kind of similar to Tim Stützle, really very similar skill set. He's fast. He likes to control the puck. He likes to dictate the pace of the play. And, those are 2 players that I've kept my eye on just early, but we have so much time if they move the draft back to scout them. And, you're going to get a much better picture of who those top 5 players are versus if they went in kind of, blindly basically and took players this year.
Yeah, 100%. And it's something we'll keep an eye out. It's a developing story. But, that wraps up this episode. We're going to have a lot more to talk about next week when we have the Edmonton series. And then I think we play, Calgary again? Or is it Montreal? I haven't actually looked that far ahead.
I didn't look that far ahead either. Live for today, right?
Yeah, I know our next 2 games are against Edmonton. And I think we have a Calgary coming up. Is it Winnipeg again?
Yeah.
The fact that we've played Edmonton, Winnipeg twice, have 2 series against them, and we haven't even played Calgary yet, weird. I don't like it. But that's all for this episode, folks. I hope you all enjoyed it. Thank you all for tuning in. Remember, like us, subscribe, share the videos, all that fun stuff on YouTube. And Twitter, Instagram, the drill. Follow us, Sens_hour. We got some big news dropping soon, so you will want to keep updated on our social medias because we will be dropping them there first before the episodes. But That being said, follow me, Shane_Ryan97, Derek Adili075 for your Sens news all the time. We'll catch you back here next week with a brand new episode of the Sens Hour podcast. Stay safe. Enjoy the Sens season. Go Sens, go. Let's get going.